of the JKYog Youth Conference. It's been an incredible journey these last 2 days, listening to highly inspiring principles of making a change, developing, your inner values and your outer skills, combining them to make a difference in the community, and to bring this all home to help you to apply these principles in your life and make a difference in your community in your own way at your level. We have a national taekwondo champion, 8th Dan black belt, Chris Natski, who is a motivational speaker. And today he will be talking about the mind of a champion, how to ignite your life through vision, service, and action. Chris is not only a champion himself, but he has been training others to find their own inner champion over 4 decades. He has 40 years of experience doing this. You're in very good hands. As an 8th degree black belt master instructor and a former national taekwondo champion, Chris ranks in the top 1% of all the martial artists in the world. Now, as a life leadership coach, a keynote speaker, and an author, his passion is sharing his unique brand of aptly titled Black Belt Leadership, so others may discover the most empowered version of themselves, leading to a clarity of purpose, increased confidence, and the courage to take inspired action to make your dreams come true. Chris's principles of success and leadership have transformed the lives of literally thousands of students, business professionals, and organizational leaders. And his message of inspiration and empowerment and belief in yourself leaves audiences moved and inspired to take action, decisive action in creating the lives and careers while making a positive impact on the world. Chris holds a bachelor's degree in communication studies from Northwestern University. He was also a 4-year letterman in football and a master's in spiritual psychology from the University of Santa Monica. He's a former sales executive with Procter & Gamble Distributing Company, and he is the author of his book, Black Belt Leadership, 7 Keys to Creating a Life of Purpose by Discovering Your Inner Champion. Interesting fact, Chris is an avid yoga practitioner and father of 2 sons, grown sons. He resides in Denver, Colorado, and he has traveled the world over. We are extremely privileged in JKYog today to have Chris Natski, national taekwondo champion and motivational coach, to teach us how to develop the mindset of a champion and overcome obstacles in our journey to transform ourselves and make a difference in the community. Thank you so much, Chris, for joining us, and over to you. I think, Chris, we are trying to hear you. I think we can't hear you. Yeah, we're not able to hear you.
All right.
Yes, we can hear you now.
I apologize for that. So thank you so much, everyone, for inviting me to speak. It's my absolute pleasure to be here. And as Aditi shared during my biography, for my real passion is to help people find their mind of a champion, because I know that exists in each and every one of us. And I think the best way for you to understand exactly what my message will be today is for me to share a little bit about my journey in martial arts. I started my martial arts training back in 1973. I was a short little chubby kid. I was enamored with a TV show at the time called Kung Fu. Now, many of you kids may not know that, but hopefully your parents remember that. And it was a story of a Shaolin monk named Kwai Chang Caine. And he would walk across the western part of the United States. The bad guys would try to beat him up, and he would take care of them using his Kung Fu. And when you're 10 years old, it's one of the coolest things you've ever seen in your life. And I literally begged my mom to let me go to my first class. And I remember it like it was yesterday, these amazingly powerful movements. And I felt like I came home. And about 3 years after that, I would meet a man that would change my life forever. In fact, he's still my instructor to this day. His name is Grandmaster JK. Now, Grandmaster Lee had recently moved from South Korea. He had hardly a dime in his pocket. He could hardly speak English, but he had this burning desire to transform lives through martial arts. And one of the first times I was in his class, I was seated in the corner of the room, stretching out, warming up, getting ready for the class, and my legs were spread wide. And he walked into the mat and the dojo, as he always did, with this amazing power, this amazing presence. And he was surveying all of the students. And all of a sudden I realized he was staring directly at me. And before I could move a muscle, he had come over and sat down in front of me. And he put his right foot on the inside of one leg, his left foot on the inside of the other. He grabbed the ends of my belt, and with one push-pull, he split me out to 180 degrees. I learned two important life lessons that morning. Number one is anyone, yes, anyone, can do the splits at least one time. But the other thing I learned is when he looked at me deep in the eyes and he said to me in his broken English, he said, "I will make you a champion. I will make you a champion." Now, when you're 13 years old, all you think about are medals and trophies in the Olympics. And I literally glided home to tell my parents what he had said. But as the years have gone by, what I've realized, what his real message was to me, was becoming a champion in life. And this is someone who can have a purposeful vision for what they want to create in their lives and have that be backed by that powerful presence that they create. And then also being able to move through obstacles when they come and have that way of having the passion that drives you. And then finally is being able to understand what your gifts are and then live a life of service in order to give that back to the world. You see, we have a saying in martial arts that a champion doesn't need to be told what to do. They just need to be reminded. And that reminding doesn't just come in a way of recollection, of remembering things. It's about changing our mindset so we can show up as the most powerful person we were designed to be. So let's get started. We're going to talk now about the idea of having a purposeful vision. Now, it's often been said that a vision is what gets us up in the morning, right? It's what gets you excited about living life. And I think you'll agree with me that when you're very clear about your vision and you seek out the things that are positive, that vision to support you, you'll start seeing more of those in your life. However, if you just focus on the challenges and the negative aspects of things and the obstacles in front of you, you'll start to see more of those as well. In fact, I'd like you to play a little game with me. And I know most of you are sitting at home and you're probably in areas you're very familiar with, but I want you to play this game with me. I want you to look around the room right now, and I want you to notice everything that's the color blue. So you might have a blue shirt, blue drapes, a blue water bottle, blue, blue, blue. Notice everything that you see that's the color blue. All right, now, here's the game, and stay with me on this. Close your eyes. Now, as your eyes are closed, I want you to think about 5 things that you saw that were the color green. Okay, open your eyes. Now you notice when you focused on blue, that's all you could see. But the fact of the matter is that our minds, they will direct in the way that we set them. And so what are you focusing your energy and attention on? What are the things that you really want and where are you putting that intention? Now, some of you, I know, may not be driving yet, but some of you may be getting ready to drive, and some of you already may have your license and you're driving a car. But I want you to think about the time, or maybe right now, where you've actually wanted a new car. And you felt very intentional about that. And have you noticed that when you set a real strong idea of what you wanted, you started seeing more of those cars on the road? I mean, if you didn't see them on the road, you saw them on television advertising, or you saw them on Facebook, or you saw them in magazines. You see, what you were experiencing there when you set that strong intention is something the brain does called the reticular activating system. The reticular activating system. So when you focus on something, your brain starts to seek those things out. So my question for you is, what are you focusing on? You know, the first time this really came present for me is, as DT had shared, I was a student athlete at Northwestern University. I was a football player, and I had gotten married between my junior and senior year of college. And we were getting ready to play The Ohio State University. And I came home to see my new bride for lunch, and she gave me news that would change my life forever. She said, "Guess what? You're going to be a dad." And I did what any young 21-year-old would do. I said, "Yes, I'm going to be a dad," followed very closely by, "Oh my God, I'm going to be a dad." And when I left the house that day, what did I start seeing everywhere? I know most of you said babies, but it wasn't babies at all. It was pregnant ladies. They were waddling all over the place, but they were always there before, and I didn't see them. See, my question for you is as you're moving through life, as you are set on your vision, what are the things you're choosing to focus on? Because what you focus on will expand. And it basically comes in three ways when we want to create this purposeful vision. The first thing what we want to do is we want to make sure we're listening to our hearts, because that's really where it comes. We can get advice and coaching from other people, but what is really making your heart come alive? Number two is to make it clearly defined in your mind. Set up the specifics about it, because the more clear you can get and more intention you can get around that, the stronger it'll be. And finally, and probably most importantly, it's something you become on the inside before it ever happens on the outside. Let me say that again. It's something you become on the inside before it ever happens on the outside. You know, it's about a combination of two important principles. It's about setting that powerful intention, and then also in involving that and energizing that with gratitude. Not only gratitude for what you want, right? Being grateful as if it's already there, but also being grateful for the things you have today. Because as you begin to show that gratitude with that powerful intention, things will begin to attract into your life that have that same energy. So what is that for you? You see, really, when it comes right down to it, what we need to do is we need to be able to control our inner states with that mind of a champion. We have to control our way of being. You know, several years ago, I did a very intense leadership training course. In fact, there were several of us from all over the United States as well as South America. And we were all coming together for 28 straight days of leadership training. And on one of the first days, the facilitator came to us and he was looking across the room and he said, you know what? Most of you in this room are living your lives backwards. And I thought that was an interesting thing for him to say. And he said, most of you are living your lives backwards. You're living your life from a perspective of have, do, be. Have, do, be. When I have enough money, then I'll do the things I want to do and I'll be happy. When I have enough time, then I'll spend the time, I'll do the things with my children that I said I would do and I'll be a better parent. When I have more customers, I'll do an expansion in my business and then I'll be successful. And he said, all those things on the outside are good. But he said, the fact of the matter is even when we have things happen on the outside, if we don't have it happen first on the inside, it's really all a moot point. He said the people that have really understand what life is about and being truly powerful and successful in life, they turn those words around. And they look at life from a perspective of be, do, have. Be, do, have. If you want to be more loving, more conscious, more proactive, start being that way. Then do the things that support that way of being, and then you can have what you want. You see, we may not be able to control the things that happen on the outside, but we can always control what's going on inside. See, in this powerful way of being, it becomes the bedrock, the state of being for how we move through life. It impacts the experiences we attract to ourselves and the things that come forward in our world. But that happens inside of you first. It doesn't happen because of somebody doing something to you, whether it's positive or negative. It originates inside of you. And so I want you to think about this. When you come into life in this powerful way, you'll start to see things differently. In fact, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at will change. I'm going to show you 3 pictures here, and I just want you to look at it and see how things begin to change as you change your perspective. So let's take a look at this first one. Who sees a bunny? Now who sees a duck? Right? When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. What do you see here? Some might see an old man. Some might see another old man. Some might see a young woman. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And finally, you see an old man and an old woman, but do you see 2 musicians? Do you see a woman in the doorway? See, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at will change. And it's about that way of being. See, because now when you can control your way of being, rather than move through life as a victim to your circumstances, you become a creator of what you want to experience. And I want you to think about times in your life where you maybe didn't show up at your very best. And during those times, what probably was occurring is you were showing up in less than an empowered way of being. Things I would call a disempowered way of being. So maybe you were cynical, you were shy, you were fearful, you were frustrated. And as a result of that way of being, that's what showed up in your life. But how about when you were at the top of your game? You probably showed up in an empowered way of being. You were passionate, you were confident, you were responsible, you were enthusiastic. So here's something I'd like you to do right now. If you have a piece of paper next to you and a pen, or maybe even put it into your phone, choose one empowered way of being that you're going to show up now. Coming from this conference, the ideas, the concepts you got from all the marvelous speakers, but your responsibility is to show up in that empowered state of being. And what is that for you? How are you going to show up being? All right, let's move on. Because we know in the course of moving through life and moving through to our dreams, we're going to come upon obstacles. It's a given. In fact, the sooner we realize that it's going to be a given, the less energy they have against us when those obstacles come. In fact, it's interesting. I love reading studies about how human behavior happens. And there was a study that was done years ago, and they were looking at people who were experiencing happiness and success in all areas of their life. And what the scientists wanted to discover is what were the commonalities that these people had that basically was the catalyst for them to have that experience. And their first hypothesis was, well, it must be their socioeconomic background. It must be where they grew up. So they looked and they did their study and they found there was no commonality. Some people had success, but they didn't grow up in great areas and things like that. And so they said, must be something else. It must be education. So they looked at education and they found there was no correlation there. And they said, well, it must be IQ. It must be their ability, to use their intellect. And that didn't work either. You know what it was? It was grit. It was grit. It was the ability to move through obstacles, whatever came. And it wasn't as if they needed to make this huge breakthrough right at the beginning, but they were constantly showing up. Even though the obstacles presented themselves, they were intentional on what they wanted, and they just kept showing up. And what they basically demonstrated is what we do in the martial arts when we say a black belt is a white belt that never quit. A black belt is a white belt that never quit. It reminds me of a story of one of my favorite students. His name is Nabeel. Nabeel came to me. I'm here in Denver, and he and his mom and his sister moved from Southern California. Mom was a single mom, and Nabeel had trained in martial arts prior. So he integrated into my school, and I have to admit, and I think Nabeel would say it too, he wasn't the best martial art athlete, but he kept showing up. And so now he continues to train, and he's been with me for a couple of years, and he tests for and receives his junior first-degree black belt. But he doesn't quit there. A couple of years of training go by, he gets his second degree. And now he's continued to train, and now he's part of our demonstration team. And now fast forward to his senior year of high school, he's now 17 years old, and he's one of my instructors. And he's an amazing teacher. Students love him, parents love him. And Nabeel has a dream. His dream is to study engineering at one of our local universities here in Colorado called the Colorado School of Mines, one of the best in the country. And he'd been telling me about this dream for years. So anyway, one day I walk into my school and there's Nabeel at the front desk, not looking his usual happy self. And he asks if we can go into the office. We go into my office and he proceeds to tell me, sir, I got a letter and I was not admitted to the School of Mines. So it was a devastating news that he got. You see, what happened was he had gotten a C in chemistry his sophomore year of high school. So we decided to talk about what his next steps were. And he said, well, sir, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to another university here in Colorado. I'm going to get my grades up, find out what I need to do. And my sophomore year, I'm going to reapply and I'm going to go to the School of Mines. Said, great plan, my friend. Well, 2 weeks went by. I come back into the school. Now Nabeel is standing at the front desk, but this time he's got this huge grin on his face. We go into my office and he proceeds to tell me this story. On his own accord, he called up the Dean of Admissions at the Colorado School of Mines and asked for an appointment. The idea of the appointment was just so that he could find out what the classes he needed to take at the other university so he could admit into the School of Mines in the next fall. And he was there and he was talking to the admissions director and he was sharing his passion for what he wanted to do. And he was asking the questions. He was showing up powerfully. He was showing up enthusiastically. And in the middle of one of his sentences, the dean held up his hand and he said, stop. And Nabeel thought, oh my gosh, have I insulted this man? And the dean said, stop right there. I'm admitting you to the School of Mines. Don't you ever get a C in chemistry again. But you see, Nabeel showed up as his powerful self with a powerful intention. And when he did that, great things happened. Where do you have an opportunity to do that in your life? See, because those things that hold us back are always going to be there. But what we want to be able to do is be able to see beyond them and have that grit of a champion. So how does that work? Well, the first thing is always work on being present. There are so many distractions that we have in our life, right? You know, this cell phone here, we all have these and they're marvelous tools. And you know that this has more computer power in it than the lunar module that landed on the moon in 1969? And what do we use it for? Arguing with strangers and watching cat videos, right? You know, but it's such a powerful tool. But the fact of the matter is sometimes it can come to our detriment because we're not being present. Where do you have a time in your life, an opportunity to just set it down so you can be with the people you love? You can be with your teachers. You can be totally focused on the project that you're working on. Next is this idea of being progressive. And what I mean by that is being progressive in our growth. We have a saying in martial arts called kanai. It stands for constant and never-ending improvement. Now here's your one martial art lesson for the day. I need you to do this. I need you to make a fist, but I want you to bring your thumb on the inside and curl your fingers over the top. Now, with my fist this way, what would happen if I punched something this way? I would break my thumb. But what if I practice this 1,000 times? What would I get good at? Breaking my thumb. You see, but how many times do we continue to go back to old habits and old behaviors because we just don't have the courage to move beyond them? See, sometimes we need to step back and see if what we're doing is making sense and it's productive, and whether or not we have to course correct and change. And a champion knows that. And then finally is the idea of being prepared. It's the fall of 1980. My high school football team, the Oconomowoc, Wisconsin Raccoons, are getting ready to play the Hartford Orioles. I'm sure you all remember this epic game. Both teams are undefeated. We're both 6-0. And whoever wins this game is in the driver's seat for the conference championship. And we have them at our home stadium. And it's minutes before kickoff. And all of my teammates were up above the stadium in what is called the team room. It's a small, dark room where you meet before the game and you meet at halftime. And you could feel the tension inside the room. In fact, you could cut it with a knife. You know, guys were quiet. They're getting fired up for the game. And then finally, our coach comes in. And he gives the most amazing speech ever delivered. And the place erupts. Guys are hitting each other over the shoulder pads. They're headbutting each other. Spittle's coming out of their mouth. They're like 40 rabid dogs. And now it's my goal. It's my job as the team captain to lead them onto the field. And I am scared. No, I'm not just scared. I'm petrified. And it has nothing to do about football. You see, as I said, that team room was high above the stadium. So in order to get onto the field, you had to navigate about 30 steps to get on the field, 30 cement steps. Now, I don't know about you, but have you ever walked on cement in cleats? It's like being on ice skates. So I get to the top of the stairs and all I can think is, don't fall, don't fall, don't fall. And I begin to navigate my way down the steps. Bink, bink, bink. And guess what happens? Okay, I didn't fall, but here's what my next obstacle was. You see, in front of me is something that the cheerleaders had created called a run-through. It was this big piece of crepe paper with this wood frame. And this woman came up to me and she said, Chris, this is what I need you to do. When I say go, you're going to take a running start. You're going to break through that paper and the crowd is going to start cheering and the band's going to start playing. I said, I got it. So she says, go. And I go, ah, and I start running. Boom. And I bust through. And what happens? The band starts playing and the crowd starts cheering. Except there's one thing I didn't notice. See, right on the other side of those cheerleaders was a little bit of a dip. Kind of done, I guess, you know, when the snow and the rain would come so it could run off. And I run through and boom, all of a sudden my right foot catches. And all of a sudden I see myself in suspended animation parallel to the turf. You know, sometimes they say that your whole life flashes in front of your eyes. And all I can think about in this moment is if I go down now, either one of two things are going to happen. Number one, it's either going to be like a 40-car pileup on the highway, or number two, my teammates aren't going to notice me. They're going to trample me to death. Not a great way to start the game. But then all of a sudden, something hits me. You see, from one of the first times I was ever in Grandmaster Lee's classes, he taught me how to do one thing. He taught me how to fall. He taught me how to fall when I moved backwards, to the side, forward, and he taught me how to tuck and roll. He taught me how to tuck and roll. So I'm in the suspended state and I hear tuck and roll. Tuck and roll. So I dip my shoulder, roll on it, go onto my butt, pop onto my feet, and I run to the end zone, and the disaster was averted. And when I turned around and looked at all my teammates, you know what they were each doing? Each one was doing a somersault as they came out of the field. Great leadership, right? But the fact of the matter was, is I was prepared. Didn't even know I was, but I was prepared. So my question for you is, what can you be doing in your life right now to ensure that you're getting prepared when those moments arise? The quality of our life is basically in direct proportion to the quality of questions we ask ourselves. So when things come to us, when adversity comes and we're asking questions like, why me? Those are disempowering questions. But when we ask powerful questions, that's when we can start to see things differently. So I've got a series of 5 questions that I want to share with you now that I work with my students and with my clients, that when adversity hits, these are the questions to ask yourself. And the first one is this: what's really happening here? You know, when adversity comes to us, sometimes we're sad, we're angry, we're despondent, whatever, and it's okay to have those negative feelings. But once you allow those to move through you, then you need to ask the question, what's really happening here? And you get away from your story. So now you can really deal with what's in front. Number next is, and I love this question, what wants to happen here? Sometimes we can get so attached to the outcome that we want, or the direction to the outcome that we want, we don't look at other options. So when you step back and you analyze it and you take a breath and you say, what wants to happen here? Sometimes new ways of getting to our goal will emerge. Number next is, what do I need, or what do we need to keep doing? You got to where you're at because you did some good things. What are the things that are in your toolbox that you can continue to practice? Number 4 is, what do we need to stop doing? Are there some behaviors? Are there some things that you've done that have held you back from being the very best you can be? And then finally, what do we need to start doing? Is there a new activity, a new behavior that you can learn from someone else or bring someone else in to assist you in that? What do you need to start doing? And then finally, your bonus question: it's okay to ask for help. Trust me, you don't get a gold star by being Captain Solo when you're dealing with challenge. Some of the best leaders I know are the people that know how to literally ask for help when they need it. All right, let's move on. Let's talk about such an important topic that I know that you've been talking about during this conference, is what I call compassionate service. You see, I think that as leaders in our own lives and in our communities, when we truly understand this idea of service, this is what sets us apart. And this is what allows us to show up as the very best we were designed to be. And I love this quote from William Arthur Ward, where he says, you must be silent before you can listen. You must listen before you can learn. You must learn before you can prepare. You must prepare before you can serve. And you must serve before you can lead. You must serve before you can lead. Now, what's so interesting about this idea of service is that when we do acts of service, when we do acts of kindness, it has this amazing ripple effect in our world. You know, you probably would understand that when an act of kindness is done toward you, you feel good. In fact, scientists would say it's this emergence of serotonin and oxytocin, the hormones, the feel-good hormones that come. And if you look at this picture, that's what you'll see in this elderly gentleman being helped. But what's so neat is scientists will also tell you that the people doing the acts of service, their levels of oxytocin and serotonin, they raise by the same amount. But here's where it really gets good, my friends. Just someone watching that same act has their level of oxytocin and serotonin raise as well. And then they're inspired to do things of service also. You see, we have a lot of discussion these days, particularly in the United States, about being contagious. If we're going to be contagious, why not be contagious in doing acts of service? See, but here's something for you to consider, particularly as leaders in your own communities, is who's the one person we often forget about serving? And that would be ourselves. You see, and what I mean by that is this, is that I had a teacher tell me a while ago that it is so important that we take time to take care of ourselves so we can help take care of others. Take care of ourselves so we can help take care of others. And the fact of the matter is when we don't do that, what ends up happening is we deplete ourselves. We don't have the energy, and then we can even become resentful. So what can you do? Sleep, nutrition, meditation. What are the things that you can be doing so that you can be at the very top of your game? And then when you have those opportunities to serve, then you simply ask the questions. You set the intention for what you want to do. You slow down so you can see the opportunities that exist in front of you. And finally, you're courageous enough to ask others when they need help, but importantly, have the courage to ask for help when you need it. And then, and having all that working in your favor, when you're out in your life and you're in a leadership position, the question then becomes, how may I serve? How may I serve? Now, let's wrap this up. You know, one of the most important things I know in my life, and I've lived this for many, many years, is that all of this information that I've shared with you today is great information, but it's not any good. It's not any good unless you take action, unless you take action. We say that martial arts is an action philosophy. It's an action philosophy. So we have to take that action to make things happen. But we all kind of know that there's basically three types of people on this planet, right? There's people who make things happen. There's people who watch things happen. And then there's people who stand around and say, what just happened? Who do you want to be? You see, the fact of the matter is that when you're committed to action, things will start to attract to you. You not only need to have the intention, but then you need to seek it out, and you need to seek out those ideas. Now, sometimes that is not the easiest thing to do, because when we're embarking upon new activities and we're embarking upon new ways of being, we come upon obstacles, and because of our fear and our limitations, we begin to pull ourselves back. Now, I've had the honor of teaching literally tens of thousands of students throughout my martial art career. What I've noticed is anyone who ever learns a new activity or makes a new change in their life goes through 4 distinct stages in their lives as they do that. The first one is what I call being unconscious incompetence. Unconscious incompetence. You don't know what to do, and you don't know that you don't know what to do. So if I was teaching you a martial art class right now and we were going through moves, some of those might be very, very new to you. And at first, it might be very fun because you're learning something new. You're engaging your body in a new way. You're starting to feel good about things. But what invariably happens when we learn and we embark on a new activity, things begin to speed up. They begin to speed up and they begin to feel like they're getting out of control. And then we move into what I call conscious incompetence. Conscious incompetence. That's where we know what to do, but we realize we can't do it yet. But what ends up happening here is that we start to doubt ourselves. And here, my friends, is where most people quit. This is where most people quit, because all the things start rolling around in their minds. And you know, I'm not good enough. I'm not tall enough. I'm not old enough. I'm not young enough. I'm not good looking enough. I'm not smart enough. All those things start to come into our awareness, and it begins to hold us back. In fact, I'm going to ask you a question right now. And if you were in an audience with me, I'd ask you to be raising your hand. But I'm going to ask you these questions right now. How many of you can paint a picture? Okay. How many of you? Good. How many of you can sing a song? Okay, very good. Now, I'm looking in my camera right here, and I can almost guarantee you that about 20% of you said that you could do one of those two activities, right? Now, think about this. If I had $1,000 in my hand, and I said, how many of you can sing a song? And I'm going to wire this directly into your bank account, how many of you would start singing? Probably a lot of you. See, it wasn't that I asked you if you could sing well. I just asked if you could sing. How about this? What if I waved a magic wand and instantly I turned you all into 5-year-olds? And I said, who can paint a picture? Almost all your hands would come up, wouldn't they? See, the fact of the matter is that somewhere along the line, we begin to attract and we begin to hold on to these limiting beliefs, either things that we've created ourselves or things that people have told us. And so the fact of the matter is that those self-limiting beliefs, when we look at them, we can disempower them if we choose. And if we continue to move forward, because then what we do is we move to our next level, which is conscious competence. You can do it, but you have to think about it, right? Think of any new activity that you've ever embarked upon. You had to start on it, and then it needed to become something that was second nature, right? And so then you move to level number 4, which is unconscious competence. When you brushed your teeth this morning, you probably didn't have a cat on your head, but you weren't thinking about your teeth. You were probably thinking of all sorts of other things, and your body just automatically did it. And we have the ability to do that, but we have to go through the stages first. Imagine if you were a toddler, and the first time you fell down learning to walk, you said, I can't do this anymore, right? But you didn't do that. So where's an area in your life where maybe you're butting up against that challenge and you're deciding not to move through it? You see, because I'm here to tell you, we all have those challenges. Whether you're an 8th degree black belt, or you're a high school junior, or you're a 13-year-old in middle school, you're all having those challenges. And the people who really find their championship mind, their championship heart, move through those to better things. So what does hold us back? Well, you know what I found is that most of the time it's anchored just rawly in fear. And many times it's fear of looking bad, right? It's fear of being embarrassed. It's a fear of failure. But what I've also found is oftentimes it's a fear of being successful. What happens if all of a sudden I'm successful and things start to speed up? See, we each have our own individual things that hold us back. What is yours? Now, I want to know out there if any of you have a habit of worrying. I didn't ask if you were a warrior. I asked if you were a worrier. I mean, I personally, throughout my life, have had to deal with this. You know, being maybe the oldest child in my family, I was always worried about everyone else and making sure everybody else was okay. And so worrying for me has been something that I've had to really work on myself. And I love the study, and it was a book by the same name. It was a Dr. Robert Leahy from UCLA, University of California, Los Angeles. And he did this study called The Worry Cure several years ago. And here's what he did. He brought a whole number of subjects together. And what he said was, he said, I want you to list very much in detail all the things you're worried about happening over the next month. Are you going to have anticipating problems in school, in your relationship, in your health, in your finances, everything that might be going wrong in your life that you're worried about happening, jot it in detail on a piece of paper and then hand it over. So that's what the subjects did. They wrote it down and they handed it to him, and he said, this is what I need you to do now. And you go out and live your life. For the next month, don't do anything different. Don't do any major changes, just live your life. Come on back in about 32 or 33 days and we'll check this out. So that's what the subjects did, is they came back, and here's what they found. Here's what they found. 85% of the things that people listed on that study that they were worried about never happened. 85%. Now, I know what some of you are thinking, though. Some of you good at math are going, but 15% did, right? But here's what they found out about that 15%. Of the 15%, 79% of those things, when they happened, people A, said they weren't as bad as they thought they were going to be, or B, when they happened, they were actually happy they did because they learned from them. So if you really drill that down, here's what you find, is that 97% of the things that you worry about either never happen or they aren't as bad as you think they'd be. So I have a question for you. How would you live your life differently if you knew this to be true? What conversations would you have? What activities would you embark upon? What risks would you take if you knew that to be true? You see, taking those risks and taking that action can certainly be scary at some time, and it's really about us getting out of our comfort zones, right? And that's the only place, I'm here to tell you, where growth really happens, is being able to move out of those comfort zones. But what oftentimes happens is people get extremely excited, extremely fired up, and they go out of the, like gangbusters, but they go so out of their comfort zone, they go to something I call the panic zone, where, my gosh, I'm so uncomfortable here. And what happens is life just brings them back, right back to the comfort zone. So what I'm an advocate of is you go to the stretch zone. The stretch zone. What if you just got 1% better at something each and every day? And that's all you focused on, was just one incremental 1% getting better each and every day. Well, I'll tell you what would happen is the numbers begin to explode. You see, if you got 1% better at something each day over the course of a year, by the end of that year, you would be 37 times better than when you started. Now, what if you did that for 2 years? Well, some might say, well, I guess I'd be 74 times better. No, you see, because it compounds. Good habits don't add up, they compound. So what happens at the end of those 2 years is you become 1,400 times better. And if you did that for 5 years, you'd be 76 million times better. So here's my question for you. You've been blessed by these amazing speakers that you've had this whole weekend. What's at least one thing that you could focus on to take action on today? Where could you commit to yourself to be 1% better than you were the day before? Because when you do and you take strong, consistent action over time, you can have amazingly breakthrough results. So that's what the message I wanted to share with you, my friends, It's such an honor for me to be here because I truly realize and I truly believe that there is a champion inside of you. But if you take these steps of getting clear on your vision, if you anticipate that there will be obstacles, but you have the grit and the intentionality to move through, and then you commit yourself to serving by sharing your gifts in the world and taking action to do it, you can have an amazing life and you can make a tremendous impact. So as we close up here, I just want to let you know I've created something, my gift for you. And this is a white paper that I wrote called The Top 10 Big Ideas to Become a Black Belt Leader. So if you look there on the screen, you'll see a link that you can go. I also know that it's in the, it's near, I think, on the front page of your website. Download that. It's my gift to you. It has a lot of these principles that I spoke about, as well as if you're interested in my book, Black Belt Leadership, there's the link for you to get it on Amazon. It has a lot of these same principles, a lot of the stories that I shared, and plus a lot more. And then finally, you've been seeing hopefully my website address. If there's anything I can do to serve you and your family, your team, your schools, whatever that is, just go to my website, chrisnatski.com. And if you want to send me a message, go to the contact page. Just go to the contact page and just leave me a message. Shoot me an email, and we can get together. And you may the email, and if the phone call is appropriate, I'd love to be able to see how I can serve you as well. So thank you, champions. I wish you nothing but blessings as you move forward. And Aditi, I believe now we're going to get ready for some questions.
Yes, Chris, it's been so wonderful listening to this talk. I absolutely cannot, I just cannot express my gratitude enough. We're very grateful that you came here to share the mindset of a champion, and you ended with a very powerful call to action to determine what we really want, what is our purpose. Just be clear on that vision, that clarity of vision, and as well as what is the one thing, basically the one thing that we want to take away, and then we power through all the obstacles and have the grit to deal with whatever comes, no matter what.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I was actually listening to a couple of the other speakers at the conference. Dr. Majors, Dr. Kevin Majors,
Mm,
he's a psychiatrist from Harvard,
mm,
and he said something very similar, which means that what can you do with the anxiety that you're facing
yeah.
and transform it?
Beautiful. That's a wonderful question. And in fact, I'll leave you with two things. So the first thing is an awareness of what anxiety really is. And I learned this from one of my teachers a while ago. There was a study that was done several years ago where they were actually doing a brain scan, and they were seeing how a human's brain lit up when they were experiencing certain emotions. So for instance, if they were happy, it would light up in a certain way. If they were sad, it would light up in another way. And they came across anxiety, and it lit up in a very distinct way. So then they continued through the process, and there was another emotion that they found lit up in the exact same way that anxiety did. And you know what it was? It was excitement. Excitement. Anxiety and excitement would light up in the same part of the brain. So the idea there is that our brain does not know the difference between anxiety and excitement. So when we're beginning to feel that anxiety creep up, what most of the time our natural reaction is to say, I don't want to be nervous, I don't want to be nervous, I don't want to be nervous. And the more we resist it, the more that energy wants to express and the more it overtakes us. But what if the next time we felt anxious, we took a deep breath, we let it out, and we said, wow, I must really be excited. See, when I teach people how to be public speakers, it's one of the first things I teach them. And I know in high schoolers, college students, middle school students, there's a lot of coming at them, and oftentimes anxiety is something that they deal with. But
Yes.
understand what is really happening and then slow down and get into your breath. Deep, deep breath. Probably within yogic, we do a box breath, right? Say 4
Yes.
seconds in, hold for 4 seconds, exhale for 4, inhale for 4, and just get centered with the breath. And then tell yourself, I must really be excited.
That's wonderful because you're echoing the science. You're absolutely echoing the science there, which is, he showed, Dr. Majors actually showed a curve, where if you get an anxious thought and you're trying to push it away, maybe it might go away for some time, but then it'll come back with redoubled intensity the next time.
Right. That's right.
So the only thing, so the way to move past it is to experience it and then just let it go and then experience. And over time, he showed very beautifully that the peak of anxiety actually reduces.
Ah, love that.
Yes, it was beautiful, and you're saying the exact same thing. It's from the side of martial arts. It's very interesting, and the sports mindset, the mindset of a
Right.
champion. It's very interesting to hear that.
Yeah.
Um, I want to ask you something that a lot of youths, they deal with because they have all these dreams and they have all these different things that they want to do with their lives, right? They're interested in, they may be interested in whatever academic subject that they're studying, but they're also playing the piano, they're also learning martial arts, they're doing a number of different things. When there's so much to do, it could be overwhelming, right? And then it could also end up making you feel like I want to accomplish all these different things, but I only have 24 hours and I have finite energy. So how would you handle this? Like, is there a way to increase your energy? Is there a way to increase? Because it's just a function of time and energy, right?
Right.
Uh,
Absolutely. And I think that kids nowadays have a plethora of activities that they can be part of, probably more than ever before. I know that when I ran my martial arts studio, competition, if you will, I was never other martial arts schools. It was all the other activities that kids could embark upon. And I encourage students, I encourage kids to experience different things and see where they really has their heart. It really gets it open and really gets them excited about it. But here's one rule of thought I think they can use. And there was a wonderful book by a gentleman named Jim Collins. It was called From Good to Great. And he has a concept in there called the hedgehog effect. Okay. And the hedgehog effect basically is this. He says, choose something that you love to do, number one. Number two, choose something that you're really good or great at. And then choose something where you know you can make a positive impact. And this is particularly done when looking at careers, right? But he said where those three circles intersect in that Venn diagram, that's where the richness of life is. So there may be some things in life that we really enjoy, but maybe they don't have the social impact. And that's okay to still do those. But where do you want to focus your energy long term is something that you love to do, something you're great at doing, and something where you're really making an impact.
Beautiful. In fact, today in an earlier talk, I think somebody we had a youth panel with Swami Mukundananda, and someone raised a question about to what extent is it okay to like follow your passion, because your passion could be like your hobby.
Sure.
And then at the end of the day, sometimes you may really like painting, but after a while, painting might lose its charm for you, or you may really like I don't know, cooking,
Right.
and that may lose its charm for you because the happiness that you get from doing something over and over, it kind of goes down. But what he stressed on more was finding meaning,
Mm,
finding meaning in what you're doing. And of course, it helps if you know your natural talent and it's something you're good at, you'll be confident about it as well. So it's nice to hear that you mentioned that making an impact, which is where I think it's meaningful. It's meaningful for you to make a contribution in an area that you're good at, and then that kind of it creates a it's it I think it creates some kind of a loop where you actually end up loving what you do rather than doing what you love.
and that is true, And the other thing that I would say is I think that sometimes that passion that we have can be expressed in different ways. So I'll give you an experience from my own life. Before I found martial arts, and I found martial arts at age 10, so we're not talking about a long period of time here, but I loved art. I wanted to be a cartoonist. And I would draw, constantly. And then I found martial arts. And I think what happened is my way of expressing artistically then shifted to that avenue. I was still expressing artistically, I was just doing it in a different way. So again, there are different ways, and I love the idea of meaning as well, because I think that is when we're doing an activity and we realize that we're doing it for a greater good just beyond ourselves, there's a whole other level of satisfaction that comes from that sometimes we didn't even know existed.
Yes, Chris, I actually agree with that. When you know that you're doing something that makes an impact, I think in the world that we are today, there's no dearth of places where you can make an impact. And maybe touch someone's life every day, every single day. If you can touch one person's life, even that's a big deal.
Right.
Like personally, also, that if even one person is transformed uh, by something you said or something you did or an act of kindness, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
That could become, I feel that that intention that you brought up, having that intention is very important. That I think that's also been a central theme in this conference, from Dr. Majors to Swamiji to all of the speakers we had. They're very focused on the intention,
Right.
because when you have the right intention, I think your brain resources, your mind and your heart, your left and your right brain, they all come together to push you in that.
Absolutely. And it's what I said at the beginning, too, if you recall, the reticular activating system in the brain. So when you begin to focus on something through that intention, you'll start noticing different opportunities where that exists for you to embark upon. Right? It's kind of like it works in concert with each other. The more that we get intentional about it, the more of those things we see, we embark upon that, and then it's this beautiful loop that happens. See, that's why, like when I was competing in martial arts, when I was a competitor, what I would do is I wouldn't just focus also on what I wanted. I also would focus on my process, right? I would visualize my training, because sometimes we just visualize the end state, and that's good. But where there's a real wonderful gift is when we also focus on our process for getting there, and we visualize that. If you talk to any major athlete, they'll be constantly rehearsing that process. And that can come in many different ways. But I think sometimes people just focus on the end result and focus on the process to get you to the end result. And there's huge power in that.
Yes, it comes back. Even in the Bhagavad Gita, it says, you have to focus on doing your duty without attachment to the outcome.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and that allows you to focus completely on your process
Hmm. Exactly.
and
And
do
be
your
present.
best.
And
Be
be
present.
present right in the moment, because
Yes.
you're detached from the outcome. You know, you have your intention and you have your dream, but then you're there in the moment. I mean, like when I was competing in the National Taekwondo Championships, I had a intention of winning the gold medal, but when I had an opponent in front of me, I could not be thinking about the gold medal.
That's right.
That's a good way to get knocked out. I had to be very present right in front of my opponent. Right?
That's a very, very good example. Oh my God, that's a very good example because you're at this national level
Right.
and you're sending a very powerful message to people out there that says even when you're in that high pressure situation, you cannot focusing on the outcome is just going to mess everything up for you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
That's just wonderful to share, Chris. This just gems of wisdom here.
Beautiful.
Um, so let me switch gears a little bit. So we're going through this global pandemic. This obviously it's a pandemic that's redundant. We're going through this pandemic, and there are interesting things happening in the world that are challenging situations. And Swami Mukundananda always says that the external world, is designed perfectly to enable you to grow.
Hmm.
And probably as a martial arts instructor and someone who's reached the heights of martial arts, one of the top 0.1% in the world, um, probably you might echo some of that, right? But for us youth, when we have there's kids who have graduated from college and they're not finding jobs right now, and they're finding different ways they have to get creative, and the youth of this generation especially, we have an opportunity to inspire them.
Right. Right.
How do they take this challenge of this global of this pandemic and think about their future in a way that doesn't cause them anxiety,
Boy.
or and not become really a victim, like, oh, I graduated, but when I graduated this happened. And how or even people in general who have gone through very difficult lives, uh, how do they develop the champion mindset?
Absolutely. Well, that's a beautiful question. And the first thing that I would answer is that when those situations are happening to people in that very moment, they're very real to us. So, I would encourage people to be gentle on themselves when they're going through that pain and anxiety and whatever that is that's causing them. Just be in it. We talked about having that feeling and letting it pass, but be careful not to judge yourself for being in that situation. because that can become a downwards cycle too. I think many of your audience might, at least the adults may, but maybe some of the kids maybe remember Chuck Norris, right? Chuck Norris, movie star. But before Chuck Norris was the movie star that we all know him as, he was one of my heroes growing up as a national and a world karate champion. And what he used to say back in those days when they would fight, they would do what's called point fighting. So they would come in and they would, whoever would hit first, the judges would call the point. And it was like a game of tag with kicks and punches. And every once in a while, he would lose a match. Very infrequently, but every once in a while, he would lose a match. But he would always say that he never lost a match. And his students would say, well, sir, that's not right. I was in Las Vegas with you last week at the tournament and you lost in the finals. And he said, no. He said, when I would ever have a situation where I got scored on with a technique, I would go back to the dojo and I would train and train and train against that technique. And so it would never happen to me again. So you see, his defeat became a wonderful learning experience for him. And so even though it's difficult, and even though we're going through this pandemic now, I truly believe in my heart that when certain doors have closed, what it's doing is it's opening up other opportunities for us that we may not be able to see. And that skill set that we've developed, we've gone to high school, we've gone to college, and now we want to be in the market for work, we may have to just be adaptable. Remember when I went through the list of questions and I said, what's really happening? But then the second question is, what wants to happen here? There may be some need for some flexibility and change. I think of my own oldest son. So my oldest son, Joshua, got his master's in architecture. And he started the program, I think it was back in 2006, 2007. And at that time, they had painted the picture for, his architectural degree, the opportunities were endless. Well, then we went through our Great Recession. And all of a sudden, the opportunities dried up. So all of a sudden, he graduates and he has no work. But he had to do some different things. He had to do some different work to keep himself going. And then later on, about 2 years later, things began to open up and it was there. But I was so proud of him because he never gave up on his dream. And he continued to work, just being steadfast. So the big thing is when that happens is it's easy to say, simple to say, maybe not easy to do, but do your very best to hold on to that vision and do your very best not to allow discouragement to overcome you. Because if it doesn't show up in one area, I can almost guarantee you it'll show up in another.
Yes, Chris, and that's it's sort of like this is probably like a catapult. You're being pulled all the way back, and then you're getting ready to get launched into something else. But this is the time to do all the groundwork,
Right.
to build the mental strength and the stamina and everything. And this could probably actually be the starting point of a really big transformation.
Absolutely. And use that time wisely, to your point. So if you're not employed in something that you want at this point, you've gone through, what are some other ways that you can up-level your skill set? You may have that opportunity that you wouldn't have had in the past.
Absolutely, Chris. And we hope, one thing that you mentioned, I just want to quickly, because you touched upon this, it was beautiful, that the example that you gave of falling and then tuck and roll.
Right.
And then you had the presence of mind at that time, right? And in the morning, Swamiji had mentioned, people teach you how to win, but nobody teaches you how to fail.
That
And
is so true.
yeah. And when you mentioned that your master taught you how to fall, like he taught you how to fall, and that was really impactful. And you even explained the mindset, like it looks like I was doing something to be a leader, but actually
Right.
this was what was going on in the background.
Exactly.
My master's teaching came at that point in time, and it actually showed that we by ourselves, maybe we're tiny, but when we have the wisdom of the great teacher and their grace, and then we can just get up and carry on and do unimaginable things.
Absolutely. And sometimes they're not even conscious.
Yes.
Right? Like in my example, it wasn't conscious. It happened. But that's why it is so important to be steadfast in our intention, but also to ask for that help and also ask for the guidance and the wisdom of those that have come before us, right? I mean, I am so grateful. I've had so many amazing teachers in my life. And, we say in martial arts that nobody gets to black belt by themselves.
Yeah.
Nobody gets to black belt by themselves.
That's beautiful, Chris. I'm going to remember that. Nobody gets the black belt by themselves because you started with your guru, your master. That's what I really appreciated about your talk, because that's how you started. Your whole, and then look at what you're doing today, inspiring so many people. And we are truly thankful to you, Chris, that you chose this platform. This video is there for posterity, so many people are going to watch it in the future, possibly hundreds, thousands of people, and they are going to be inspired by your talk today in the future. We cannot see we can't sit in the shade of the trees that we've planted,
Mm.
but those people are going to be impacted by what you said today. And for that, we truly thank you for coming to this platform, being a part of this revolution, igniting minds, igniting the potential of youth. And we hope that you can come back again
I
and
would love to.
share more of your wisdom and more of your coaching for our youth, for the JKYog and the world youth community. Thank you once again,
Thank you,
Chris.
Aditi. All right, very good. And thank you, everyone. And have a blessed week, a blessed month, a blessed life. I appreciate you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. And with that, we have come to close to the end of the JKYog Youth Conference. Um, it has been a journey of grace, nothing but grace. And there have been so many people and so many pieces that had to come together to make this event possible. But most of all, it was the guidance and the grace of God and Guru, by the blessings of Swamiji and by the blessings of Radha Krishna, and the tremendous sacrifices of all the volunteers who came together in a miraculous way to make this happen, starting from our video editing team, to our website team, to our social media team, to and most of all, Shreya ji and Swapna ji, for holding this up. And with your constant guidance and your mentoring. And I would like to thank everyone who has been a part of this process. And we are going to get into our next session, and the last session of the day is going to be, we'll have a couple of videos by Swamiji, and we will share insights from the conference that we have gotten from around the world. People have shared how they have been impacted by the conference, and we encourage you to stick around for that, because Swamiji has some really important tips to share for students and for youth for success in your life. And thank you once again, and we will see you in a second.
So
Okay.
it will be live automatically.
Okay. Let me stop then. Okay.
Yeah.
So whenever you're ready, Bhaiya. Ajay ji.
Hello, and welcome back to the last session of the JKYog Youth Conference. It's been a tremendous journey of grace. And so many people have been a part of this, but most of all, you all, the participants who have sat through all these sessions and been inspired and shared your thoughts of how you were touched by the various talks of our different speakers. Very high caliber of speakers that we had the humble honor of hosting by the grace of God and Guru. And we will get into a session, a very interesting session where Swamiji will share a few tips for students and youth to finally bring out their best after this conference. So now you've heard everything that you can, and now it's time to apply it in your life to make a difference to your life. And to leading that session is Ajay Arora ji from Dallas, the Radha Krishna Temple of Dallas, the headquarters of JKYog. And he is the activity coordinator for the entire conference, and he has been an incredible help throughout this session with, and not just the activity coordination, but even a lot of the back end, help on a voluntary basis. So Ajay ji, thank you so much for your contributions. You're always so willing to help, and it's always inspiring to work with you because I always learn something new. So without further ado, Ajay ji, I will hand it off to you.
Thanks a lot, Aditi ji. It's been such a blessing to watch and see you emceeing the conference so far. The sessions, personally, not just you, this is me as well. I learned so many things from Vedic maths to passion, finding your passion. Every session was so inspiring, especially Swamiji's speech. So the plan for the next 25 or 30 minutes is really to cover two things, right? So we have some wonderful testimonials lined up to watch, very short but very powerful testimonials that we received from so many people around the world. So just selected two very, very good ones from there, just so that we can at least have some flavor of them. And then we have two closing messages from Swamiji, which I thought are really, really beautiful to kind of reinforce the concept of, how do we take all that we've learned forward with two important elements, the element number one of practice and the element number two of finding the right mentor. So we'll go through that in that sequence. First, we'll watch the testimonials, and then followed by the two videos by Swamiji. With that, let me start sharing my screen and we'll go through the testimonials first.
My name is Isha, and I am very grateful to JKYog for providing this international forum for the benefit and growth of the youth. I've learned a lot from the young entrepreneurs and leaders. They have inspired me to pursue my dreams and passion. They have given me valuable tips on marketing, leadership, and how to make an impact on the world. I will utilize these methods to improve my skills and talents so that I can become a valuable contributor in society. As the title goes, these youth conference sessions have truly ignited the desire to achieve my full potential. Thank you to JKYog and all the volunteers for making this happen.
Radhe Radhe, my name is Advaya Lad and I am from Allen, Texas. I'm 12 years old. I'm really thankful that I was able to attend the 2-day-long JKYog Youth Conference. It was an amazing experience. This conference really widened my horizon and my perspective on social problems and other things like that so early in my life. There are many things that I learned from the conference, but the key takeaway was follow your passion to achieve success. I really love Swamiji's keynote because it gave pointers on how to unlock your potential completely. It was a really good keynote. The opening keynote by Yashvir Singh was an amazing keynote because it gave me a clear picture of how to become a social entrepreneur with clear steps. The session by Vinny Gupta about college admissions was amazing because I really learned how college is really taking people and what you should do to get prepared for college. It's something that's worth watching for anybody. The session by Siddhartha Bhatt was a session that I could really relate to because I personally know him. I'm really grateful to Swamiji and JKYog for arranging this amazing conference. And lastly, a shout out to Aditi Didi for the amazing hosting. It was simply amazing.
Practice makes perfect. It is so factually true. If achieving mastery is simple as all that, what comes in the way? Why is it that people do not practice? When Arjuna asked Sri Krishna, Chanchalam mi manah Krishna pramathi balavadridham tasyaham nigraham manye vayoriva sudushkaram. He says, Oh Sri Krishna, my mind is so chanchal, so fickle. Ksanamayati patalam kshanam yati navasthalam. One moment here, one moment there. To me it seems that this mind is more difficult to control than the wind. Shri Krishna did not say, Arjun, tu kya bak bak karta hai? Shri Krishna said, Asanshayam mahabaho mano durnigraham chalam abhyasena tu kaunteya vairagyena cha grihyate. Arjun, what you are saying is undoubtedly correct. The mind is difficult to control. Difficult, but not impossible. Shri Krishna did not say anigraha. If he had said anigraha, there would be no use having this transformation program. We may as well all have admitted defeat. But he said, Durnigraha, difficult. So, Shri Krishna says, Arjun, Abhyasena tu kaunteya vairagyena cha grihyate. You will control the mind through repeated practice. There is no alternative to practice. That means every time the mind goes away, you bring it back. Every time it goes away, you bring it back. A social scientist called K. Anders Ericsson, he wanted to see how do people become world class. Are they born with such talent, or does it develop with practice? In any field, those who are world-class violinists, dancers, writers, or speakers, or sports people, how did they reach that level of proficiency? And he discovered this 10,000-hour rule. Invariably, these world-class performers had put in 10,000 hours of practice by the time they reached the age of 20 years. That repeated practice distinguished them from everybody else. First, something was so difficult to do, so you were consciously incompetent at it. But then you kept practicing and you became consciously competent. And as the practice increased, you became unconsciously competent. That was the mastery. Now everybody says that Michael Phelps is the most awarded medalist in the history of modern Olympics. So was he just born so talented? They forget that he was practicing 6 hours a day, 365 days a year for a 6-year period. So he probably completed his 10,000 hours of practice in 6 years itself. That is why he reached such world-class proficiency. So whatever be the field, if you wish to manage your mind and your attitudes, again the same principle. You have to practice and practice and practice. That's the way it is done. Now, if that is the case, then why is it that people do not practice? If achieving mastery is simple as all that, what comes in the way? What impedes is practice requires sacrifice. It is inconvenient. Are you willing to pay the price? A couple of years ago, when Virat Kohli was scoring all his centuries in the IPL, I just read, what does he say about his practice? He says, like a yogi, when I go to the nets to practice for 3 hours, the mind gets bored, it complains, and the body says, no, I tolerate all the boredom and all the pain and do what is necessary. So much of mind control. So practice means you have to tolerate the pain and the inconvenience. There was one significant athlete, a black American called Edwin Moses. He held the record for the maximum number of races won. He won 122 races over a long stretch of many years without any defeat in between, in the 400 meters hurdles. So he was asked, what is the secret of your success? He answers, I have greater ability to tolerate pain than the others do. Such a brilliant answer. Whenever you wish to control, there is pain. The mind, the senses will complain. Are you willing to tolerate that pain and achieve mastery or not? That is why the poet said, the lives of great men were not made by sudden flight. But while their friends slept, they were toiling upwards in the night. In this world, nothing is going to come free. You have to pay the price for it. If you want success, pay the price through repeated austerity, discipline, practice, and self-control. Are you willing to pay the price? No, Swamiji. Okay. No, I want success, but I don't want to pay the price. That will never work. There was once a king. He wanted to leave a message of wisdom to enlighten the future generations with the wisdom of his age. So he gathered all the ministers and the wise people and said, come up with some extract that I can leave behind as a heritage through which future generations will gain wisdom. All these saints, wise people, scholars, they wrote a 4-page extract and brought it to the king. The king said, it's too long. In today's age of WhatsApp, who reads 4 pages? People keep forwarding messages, but who reads it? You know, I've heard a joke which also came through WhatsApp. That Brahmaji said to Yamaraj, you know, nowadays the Indians are sharing so much of wisdom on WhatsApp. Nobody will be coming to your door at all, to Narak. Everybody has become wise and intelligent. Yamaraj said, Brahmaji, they are receiving the wisdom and they are forwarding it, but they are not digesting it for themselves. Just like I sent you a message about how to decrease cholesterol, did you read it? So Pitama Brahma said, you know, I forwarded it to 4 broadcast lists, Yamaraj, but I didn't read it for myself. Yamaraj said, that is the whole problem. So the king said, look, in today's age of WhatsApp, nobody is interested in 4-page extracts. Just shorten it up. These scholars, they went back, reconstructed it, and came back with 1 page. The king said, it's good, but not good enough. Can you shorten it further? Then they did some little kataputi and they came back with 1 paragraph. They said, oh king, is it good enough? The king said, what I had in mind was something like a sutra, an aphorism. You see, why has Ved Vyas written the Brahma Sutra, little sutras, so that people can memorize them. Now these scholars returned and then they had a divine inspiration. And they came back with a sentence containing 5 words. When the king saw that, he said, brilliant! And what were the 5 words? There are no free lunches. If you can understand this, you will give up the jackpot mentality. Whether you want to control the mind, or you want bhakti, or you want proficiency in anything, you will pay the price through discipline, through practice, through hard work. What is required then? Self-control and willpower.
Okay, we'll watch the next video now, and this is pretty powerful, finding your mentor. Let's watch it.
If you wish to know the path, ask the one who is coming back from there. The Japanese and Chinese have a word called sensei. The Italians have the word called maestro. The French have a word called tutor. The Tibetans, they use the word lama. The British use the word guide. In Sanskrit, we use the word guru. That personality who destroys from within us the darkness of ignorance and takes us to the light of knowledge is the Guru. You see, even in the world, if you wish to become an expert in any field, you learn from somebody who is already an expert. One person started up an enterprise, and the first year he struggled so much. He then later on wrote about his experiences, and he said, the conclusion I reached was that if you can get a mentor who can guide you in this process, it is more valuable than all the capital that you can receive for investment. Similarly, in the corporate world, if you have just entered as a junior engineer, as a junior executive, and you get a mentor who's up there, that mentor will help you avoid mistakes, make the right choices, and focus on the things that will work to your advantage. So how do you find a true mentor now? The mentor in the world you would look for, the qualities that you would seek in that mentor. The first is, he should be an expert in the field that you wish to learn. If you want a mentor in music, he should have this vast fund of knowledge. Only then it makes sense. I am reminded of one corporate house in a backward region of the world, Guatemala. They wanted to set up a mobile factory in their country. They did not have the technology. So they approached a technology house in Norway. That technology house offered to do a turnkey project. Turnkey project means they will set it all up for the given price. All that the customer will need to do is to turn the key and the factory will start functioning. They set it all up. They said it's complete with 1 year guarantee. Now this company in Guatemala was very excited for 1 year. The mobiles were being produced wonderfully. The moment they entered the 13th month, the whole production line came to a standstill. They contacted the technology house again in Norway. You know, the plant is not working. The parent company said, you are out of the warranty period. We will send our service engineer, but it will come at a price. They said, all right. The service engineer came all the way to Guatemala. He checked out the machinery. He tinkered a little here and touched a little here and knocked a little. And then he discovered that there was one screw loose. With his screwdriver, he tightened it. And he said, try it now. They switched on the key and the whole production line was again functioning. He said that will be $100,000. They said $100,000 for tightening one screw? This is daylight robbery. He responded, $100,000 is not for tightening the screw. $100,000 is for finding out which screw was loose. For the 7 years I did my undergrad in engineering and graduation and then specialization and the 30 years of experience, as a result of which I was able to diagnose the problem. So the mentor must be expert. The second point, The mentor must be a role model. The importance of role models is tremendous. The army knows. They always gather stories of soldiers who performed heroic feats, and they share these stories because the new recruits are tremendously inspired by these stories. I heard somebody analyze, why is it that the character of people, as unfortunate as it may seem, has fallen so drastically in India after India became an independent country in 1947? Why did this happen? Where did all that integrity and noble spirit that existed during the freedom movement suddenly disappear? So my personal analysis is that before independence, we had so many heroes to look up to idealize. Apart from Mahatma Gandhi, there was Bal Gangadhar Tilak and Madan Mohan Malviya and Ram Manohar Lohia and so many, Chandrasekhar Azad, etc. So everybody was looking up to these people who possessed noble qualities and sublime virtues. If you looked at the calendars in people's houses, they were of these great personalities. But after India gained independence, slowly, Bollywood started gaining prominence. And all these calendars were replaced by pictures of Bollywood heroes and heroines. And these heroes and heroines were obviously not role models in virtue and character. So the inspiration that had existed in earlier ages for the youth was no longer there, and that resulted in the decline in morals in the whole country. So when we search for a mentor, that mentor should be a role model for us. That is how I would like to become. Plus, the mentor's support should be available and accessible to us. If you are looking for a mentor and you choose the CEO of your organization, that is all very well. But if you are a new recruit, the only access you will have to the CEO will be once every 3 years, maybe for 2 minutes. But if you want personal guidance and coaching, that will not be available. And hence we want to find a mentor who is accessible. Further, we all want to know, does the mentor care for us? You see, this one factor is very important. In marketing, there are so many programs for training salespersons, teaching them how to hone their skills so that they can sell better. But you know what? The one quality that makes all the difference. The customer wants to know, this person who is selling, does he care for me or not? You just check it out. There are so many real estate agents. I came to know that in California there are 1 million people registered as real estate agents. But some of them become highly successful and some don't. What is it that makes for successful real estate agents? You know, the customer knows, he's able to perceive, is this guy trying to extract profit out of me? Or is he trying to solve my problem? So the real estate agent with the proper attitude is solving the problems on both sides. The seller's side, he has a problem, he wants to sell at a good price. And the customer has a problem, he wants something that is most suitable for him. So when the attitude of the realtor is right, that realtor becomes the most successful. In the same way, the student, the apprentice wants to see in the mentor that quality that does this mentor care for me? Now, come to the spiritual mentor, the guru. How do we find a mentor who can help us in life transformation?
Okay, with that, I think, Aditi ji, I'll just play one more testimonial that we just received. Give me a second. I think those were two very, very powerful videos. I personally really love both of them. I think that's a perfect closeout message for all of us to remember to practice. And then the importance of the mentor, I think Swamiji has really emphasized it well and also given us the qualities of a mentor that we should look forward to. So really important lessons to watch again and again and remember all through our life and this journey. Let's watch this final testimonial that we just got a while ago, and then from there we'll have closing words from Aditi ji and Swapna ji. Radhe Radhe.
Hello, my name is Swami Patel. I live in North Carolina and I'm from Cary High School, currently going towards 10th grade. Before I joined the youth conference, I was currently under the impression that all these great speakers will talk about the same topic, ignite your potential. But when I joined, I was wrong. To my delay, of course. There was many different topics, like digital marketing, Vedic math, ignite your potential, obviously that was the name of the whole thing, and many different more stuff. One of my favorite speakers, Chris Natski, Taekwondo black belt, he talked about how his different examples from his own life taught him different stuff, taught him different examples, and he gave lots of explanations. I especially liked his four mindsets and the 4 things that we are whenever we do things, to induce habits. In that, he said not to give up. So whenever I try and whatever mind tells me to give up, I'll keep that in mind and not give up. Another one is Swamiji, with his keynote speech was very well on how you ignite your potential. I think I understand why I'm not improving that much anymore, and I'll use what he said to improve myself and to ignite my potential. Another speaker I loved was Mr. Rao. I'm currently in North NJRTC, and NJRTC is basically the Navy, but for high schoolers. So in that, he said something very important that I've never heard anyone else said, talking about igniting your potential, your mindset, how to keep your life happy. He said to innovate, which I've never heard, so that fascinated me. And he gave an example about the Rao technique and for close quarters combat. So whenever I'm in a tight space or whenever I find myself in a pinch, I'll always remember myself to innovate. I thank JKYog for organizing this whole youth conference, and I thank all the great speakers here. Thank you, and other.
Okay, what a wonderful testimonial again. I think with that, with those 2 wonderful messages by Swamiji and the 3 testimonials that we selected and played here, I really thank you all for watching us and being with us. Over to you, Aditi ji, for closing words.
Thank you, Ajay ji, for bringing this whole thing to a perfect close, the climactic close that every event should have, and none other than Swamiji to bring it home and tell us the value of sacrifice, the value of practice, and the value, above all, of finding the right mentor who can guide us to find and ignite our potential, just like Swamiji does for all of us JKYog volunteers, and because of whose immense grace, this whole event has been made possible. And first of all, with thanks to God and Guru, I would like to thank the entire volunteer team who has been behind this 24 hours, literally round the clock. The video team, Poojaji, Shikhaji, and the video editing team, Shruti and Kostub, the website team. Without a website, we could have never reached this far. Thank you, Kritiji, for always providing round-the-clock support, despite always being the busiest person in JKYog. And the social media team, Rohini ji, Alpa ji, and Beena ji, Chaya ji, thank you so much. And thanks to all the participants. Thanks to the people who gave testimonials. For the youth who would like to volunteer at next year's conference, just send an email to youthconf@jkyog.org. That's youthconf@youthconf@jkyog.org. And we can find a way to make you a part of the conference team next year. And last but not the least, to all the amazing speakers who took time, who cared enough to come and share their wisdom for all of us at an international platform. And Swapnaji and Shreyaji, thank you for the guidance. Thank you, JKYog online team, Rajanji and Beenaji. And last but not the least, thank you, Ajayji and Swamiji for for the inspiration and the guidance behind this whole event. And with that, there will be a Q&A session, a special Q&A session later today. Ajayji, could you remind me the time?
Aditi, it is at 8 Central.
At 8 p.m. Central, yes. At 8 p.m. Central, we will have a special Q&A session with Swamiji. Do not forget to join that. We will send out the link on our WhatsApp group. And see you at the next youth conference by the grace of God and Guru. Radhe Radhe and Srimad Sadguru Sarkar.